Welcome to PratherED Talks. I'm your host, Beverly Dillard, and we're being joined today by Paige Williams. Hi, Paige. How are you? Paige is going to join us today and talk to us a little bit about the Prather vocabulary cadence. So today, Paige Williams is here with us to introduce the Prather vocabulary cadence, which is a language-forward routine. Paige, can you give us an overview of this routine?
The Prather vocabulary cadence is a language-forward vocabulary routine, and it is based on students being able to look at vocabulary in context, but also be able to, at the end of the cadence, be able to defend the vocabulary so that vocabulary becomes a part of their vocabulary repertoire. So that is what the Prather vocabulary cadence is.
All right, I know the first step is a P, and the P stands for preview. So could you tell us what that step would look like in the classroom?
Yes. So for the preview step, what we would initially be looking for in the classroom, that would look like the teacher just presenting the vocabulary in its own form in context. So that could look like a teacher reading a mentor sentence and just highlighting that vocabulary word and allowing students to think about it. The important thing here is that we don't want to define the word. We just want to preview the word. We don't want to put any limitations on that vocabulary. We want to let the student's mind get to thinking about the vocabulary and to thinking about what the context of that word may be and what it may mean.
So after previewing, that next step would be to restate. So can you give me an example of that?
Yes. So for the restate portion, this is where students put the word in their own terms to define it. This may look like in a classroom, it could be as shallow or as in-depth as you would like it to be. It could look like putting students in pairs and doing a turn-in talk and reading another sentence and having students define what the word means to them. In that context, it could be a written expression where they write down the word and define it, but really here, the main goal of this step is for students to define the word in their own understanding of it. And again, we're not defining it yet, but we are seeing what the students are gathering the word to mean based on it in context.
I see. All right, so the following step is the A for anchor. So what does that mean to anchor that vocabulary?
So in the same sense of in real life, we know an anchor is what grounds a ship. So in this stage of the process, what we want to do is kind of see where the students are grounded with the word. And we will do this by having them represent the word non-linguistically. Because it's kind of easy for us as humans to talk about things, but when we can express things, that kind of shows a bit of deeper understanding. So what it looks like from this point of the process is students will do any form of nonverbal expression to show how they define that word. So that may look like charades. They may act out the word. You could even give the students a word or a sentence that has a blank in it, and you could have them pick out an example and a non-example and explain both of them through gestures. It's just to get them interacting with the word through their body so we can see that form of expression. It's proven scientifically that once students find a way to express themselves through movement, they are more likely to remember what it is that they have learned.
Okay, so you can definitely see the progressive steps here. So the next step is to test it. That's the T in our Prather model. So what would that be? How would the students be testing that vocabulary?
So for the test stage of this process, you really just want to kind of focus on synonyms and antonyms. This is the part where students should be able to find words that they associate with that word. And they should be able to find words that mean the same thing and words that mean things differently. Because when students are able to do that, again, it anchors and shows us that they have a clear understanding of the word that they are supposed to be learning.
Okay. All right. When we move on, the next step is an H for harness. I think that's an interesting term for a vocabulary cadence. So how do you see harness fitting into the acquisition of the vocabulary for the students?
So when you think of a physical harness, it is something that is secure. It secures a person. And so in the same way with vocabulary, when we're looking at the harnessing part of our cadence, This is where we actually move into a higher DOK level because we're able to see that students are explaining now the word. So we've moved from defining the word in context and defining it in our own words, but now we have gotten to a point where we are using the word authentically in reading, writing, or discussion. When a student can correctly use a word in context, we then know that they are getting pretty close to mastering that word. This may look like a discussion question where students have to use the word in their explanation of the question. This may look like students reading a different form of the word with a different context, and then them going back to be able to explain how that form of the word fits in that passage. Really, it is just a way for students to be able to authentically use that word in context.
I see. So you talked about DOK level, and the next step is an E for explain, which I feel like is going to then even move into those higher DOK levels. So what does that explain step look like in the classroom?
Yes, so explain is a higher DOK level. That would be a DOK level 4. And explain is where they kind of are going to defend their definition of the word. It's one thing when you can explain something. It's another thing when you can defend and say, yes, this is an example of this and this is why. Or no, this is not an example of this. So this is a non-example and this is why. So that is just also giving the teacher a way of kind of informally assessing also where the students are in the use of that vocabulary. Because we know on assessments with vocabulary, it's not going to always be recalling. They're going to be able to need to put the vocabulary in action. So this step is what allows us to do that. And again, it can be as shallow or as engaging and thorough as you would like it to be. It just depends on the lesson and what step that you are on with the vocabulary cadence. But in a classroom, this may look like students defending why a word works in a certain context and why it may not.
And I can see how they would really have to be arriving at a real mastery of the word to be able to do that. The final step is an R, which is to revisit the word. And I think that with it being the final step and with it being revisit, that's an important thing. So tell me a little bit more about that step.
So my favorite thing about this step of the Prather vocabulary cadence is that this step can be used alone or it can be used together with all of it, but this is the most important part because there's that quote that says if you don't use it, you lose it, and it is very true in terms of vocabulary with students. They can learn a vocabulary word and it can be part of their repertoire, but if they aren't exercising it, they will forget what it means, especially academic vocabulary. So this point of the process is where students are spiraled through just quick everyday uses of that vocabulary word. This could look as simple as building this in as a check for understanding. Quick, on your feet, tell me what impact means, and get up, turn and talk to an. It could look like anything, but it's so beautiful because it is bringing those words back to the forefront of the student. And when students are able to quickly, at the drop of a hat, define even in their own context a word, this is when we know, in terms of language, that it is officially a part of their repertoire, and that is so beautiful as a teacher. So,
I think one of the things about this Prather vocabulary cadence that's so powerful is it seems like it can really be used across disciplines, across grade levels, and also, like you said, it's adaptable to the time frame that you have at different parts of your lesson or different parts of your unit.
Yeah.
Paige, I can see how this vocabulary cadence is very powerful in that it can be used across disciplines and across grade levels, and also that it can be used as needed with maybe the P step one day, you might use the R a different day. Is that true?
Yes, that is true. And one thing that I really love about this vocabulary cadence is that it is exactly that. You can use any steps of this process at any time in your lesson. Even if you don't plan it, you can drop it in there because this is a very flexible process and it's very student-based. And so, yes, you can use it anytime, anyway. You could follow the whole sequence together or not. It just depends on what works for you and your students.
And I think in a classroom, flexibility is always appreciated.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Paige. More resources will be forthcoming on the Prather vocabulary cadence, and for other vocabulary strategies, you can always visit PratherEducation.com.